Uri Lifshin. He is a graduate student at the University of Arizona. He works with Jeff Greenberg, one of Sheldon's colleagues. He has done a lot of experimental work and written review articles on terror management and as it relates to the human tendency to be violent towards other animals. He comes to us from Tel Aviv, Israel. Uri Lifshin.
All right. So, hi everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes, great. Okay, so I'm going to jump right into it, and I'm going to tell you about some of the research we've been doing along with my advisor, Jeff Greenberg. And just to recap on some of the things that Sheldon talked about. So when I already started learning about terror management, there was already established evidence from previous studies showing that reminding people of their mortality causes them to want to dissociate themselves from other animals, to perceive humans as significantly different rather than similar to other animals. And also there have been studies showing that mortality salience, MS, causes people to have more negative attitudes towards animals, in terms of even pet owners had more negative attitudes towards their pets. And also people sometimes show more negative attitudes towards wilderness and the natural environment. But I wanted to take these studies a step further, because looking into the harsh reality of this world, there's some really crazy behavior, as you all know, going on in terms of killing animals. And I'm not talking about the killing animals that's necessary for our basic human survival. I'm talking about instances of killing animals that could be avoided, like hunting for fun, or just killing whales as a part of a holiday, or experimenting in animals for psychology or stuff like that. So my hypothesis that in the studies that I did with Jeff Greenberg, Colin Zescott, and Daniel Sullivan at the University of Arizona, we wanted to test this hypothesis that the killing of animals serves a terror management function for humans. It makes people feel like they're superior to their own animalistic and mortal nature. And so if this is true, then building on some of this methodologies that Sheldon alluded to, reminding of people of their mortality, or increasing the accessibility of death-related thoughts in their mind, should increase how much they support the killing of animals. And basically, I'm going to tell you already what we found in 5 experiments, where we showed that death primes, reminding people of death, causes them to support the killing of non-human animals more than control primes. And now I'm going to quickly talk about the studies and the actual methodology that we used. So basically what we did in these studies, and we did vary our methodology a little bit, but in most of these studies what we did is we invited participants into the lab, and obviously as social psychologists we make sure that participants have no idea what we're doing whatsoever. And so we invited them to participate in these 2 studies, unrelated studies, which are actually the same study. But we told them that we're going to do something about linguistic associations first, and then we're going to have them do a study about their attitudes, and just looking at different social attitudes. And so in this first study that they usually do, participants are asked to do this linguistic association task, in which they just simply have to say if 2 words are related to each other or not. So they would sit in front of the computer and get something like 2 words like sneaker and then fajita. But what we did is, in between those 2 words, we planted another word, this subliminal prime that's going to be flashing really quickly at 28 milliseconds. And that word was randomly assigned. We randomly assigned participants to get either the word dead, which is a death-related prime, or the control word that was either pain or fail in some studies. And these are negative words that are not death-related. And so in the first study, participants first saw this prime, and then we had them fill out a measure of their support for killing animals in several different domains. For example, Some of the items ask them about it's often necessary to control for overpopulation by euthanizing pets, or about using animals in experiments. Again, so psychology experiments or not medical experiments per se. Or just questions about the general, how much is generally okay to kill animals or not. And we thought there might be different factors, but actually these factors seem to stick together. So I think it's interesting by itself that we've created this scale for support for killing animals in general, and that these domains are kind of related. And so, and in the first, and the results really supported this general hypothesis, and participants who were primed with the death primes, you see on the left, supported the killing of animals more than participants who saw the control prime. So on the y-axis we have the dependent variable, the dependent measure of support for killing animals, and actually 5 was the midpoint. So not only did we get a statistically significant difference, participants in the death control, in the death group actually supported more than the midpoint of the scale. And we actually did look at different moderating variables, such as participants' pre-existing attitudes towards animal rights, right? How much they love animal rights, how much they care about animal rights, and also stuff like gender. And overall, these factors did not moderate this effect. So yes, women overall supported the killing of animals less than men, and obviously people who generally like animals supported the killing of animals less, but overall, that didn't moderate the effect. So even if you look within people who care about animal rights, reminding people of their mortality still pushed them to support the killing of animals a little bit more. And I have to say, these were not animal activists, okay? So we might find something a little bit different with people like you, but overall there was no moderating effect. And then we replicated this study again, and in one of the replications, since we're social psychologists, we're asked to do these again and again and again. And in one of these studies, what we did is in this study we had a sort of different prime. It's again a very subtle prime. Participants were asked to just rate how much they like different shirt designs, and half of them saw this shirt with the death images, and half of them saw the shirt without death images, and then they were asked how much they support the killing of animals in experiments or the killing of humans in experiments. We just wanted to show that this effect is not just a cognitive thing where you remind people of death and they'll support any kind of killing. It's specifically designated to support the killings of those who would of things who will ultimately make you feel superior and make you feel like you're special. And what we found is that, again, if you look at the left side, this is the scale for killing animals, and participants who were reminded of death supported the killing of animals more than participants who didn't see the death shirt, but when it comes to killing of humans, we didn't get that same effect. In fact, patterns go the other way around if you look at the right side of the bar. And in another study, which I think is actually the most important study, we replicated this again, and as Sheldon alluded to, if you understand the dynamics of terror management, there are different things that could already satisfy our need for terror management, and then sort of moderate this effect and make us more tolerant. And one of those things is giving people a sense that they have a sense of self-worth, or enhancing their self-esteem. And what we did in this study is we first had participants do this task in which they were primed with either death or the control prime. And then, right after that task, we gave half of them, randomly assigned, a self-esteem boost. Okay, so for half of them, the experimenter came into the room, looked at their ambiguous results, and randomly said something like, "Oh wow, I'm not sure I've ever seen a score this high before, this is really good." Or he would say something like, "Okay, you did good, just as well as most people do on this task," right? So this first one is a self-esteem boost, and the second one is sort of neutral. We didn't want to offend anyone, obviously biased our results. And then after this, participants fill out the same measure of support for killing animals that I showed you before in study 1. And what the results show is that when the feedback was neutral, right, on the left, if you look on the left, we replicated the effect again, and we found that participants who were primed with death supported the killing of animals more than participants in the control condition. But when the feedback was positive, when they got the self-esteem boost, we no longer saw the effect, right? So priming people, so the participants primed with death were no different than the control group in how much they supported the killing of animals, okay? And then in the fifth study, we wanted to replicate this again, and we also wanted to do a couple of more things. First, we wanted to sort of contextualize this killing in a more real-life scenario, and we also wanted to look a little bit into the aftermath of the effect and the psychological consequences of it. And so the context was we first had participants, again, do this subliminal task where they got the death prime or the control prime. And then we had them read a bogus article which based on different facts about the annual killing of 200 million male chicks in the egg industry, okay? And we actually played around with how much this killing was justified. So half of the participants read that the killing of male chicks in the egg industry is vital for the survival of the industry, and half of them read that basically this killing helps keep the costs of eggs very low, and if we would stop it, it would mean a 10% increase. So we have to kill them to save 10% on eggs. And then after this, we first measure how much they support the killing of male chicks in the egg industry. So for example, we had items like, as long as there's no other practical solutions, it's okay to kill the male chicks. And so we had about 5 items like that. And we also asked them, I don't have that up here, but how much percentage more we should pay in order to stop the killing of male chicks. And then we also measured how much they feel powerful and invulnerable. And again, there was an elaborate cover story. Participants did not know. They thought there was 3 studies. They had no idea whatsoever what the study was about. And what we found in the study basically is that participants who were primed with death, if you look at the beginning of this figure, if you were primed with death, you're more likely to support the killing of male chicks, statistically significant effect. And the more you support the killing of male chicks, the more you felt powerful and invulnerable afterwards. And we also found this indirect effect. So, simply priming people with death won't make them feel invulnerable or more powerful. But statistically, we could show that there's an indirect effect in which you prime them with death and then you give them the opportunity to support killing, and that indirectly enhances how much they feel powerful and invulnerable. Okay, so just to quickly summarize these findings, death primes caused people to support the killing of animals more than control primes. This effect was not moderated by gender, by pre-existing attitudes towards animal rights or towards killing animal, by people's perceived similarity to other animals, that didn't matter, by religiosity, that didn't matter either, political attitudes didn't matter, and the degree to which the killing was justified, that didn't matter too. So I didn't go into that because we don't have much time, but basically what we found, which was kind of surprising, because initially we thought that when the killing is justified, then people would go ahead and we'd see a great effect because they won't feel immoral, right? There's something that kind of masks their real motives, and we figured that if it's not justified, if it's just for 10%, we're not going to find any effects. But we did. We found that even when it's just 10%, people supported the killing of animals. And in fact, I don't have that graph up here, but in fact, we asked them how much more they're willing to pay, and the participants who read that 10% would be enough were not willing to pay 10% more. The control group actually went above 10%, And the death prime group were were willing to pay about 7%, and really the confidence interval was up to 9.5%. So they weren't willing to pay that 10%. They wanted the animals dead. And to just reiterate this important point, we did find that a self-esteem boost moderate this effect. So this again shows that there's a sort of need to manage the terror of death, and if we can build on the insights from terror management, then we can learn how to moderate this effect using other things, right? So enhancing people's self-esteem, making them feel like they have important social relationships, right? So maybe this indirect way of manipulating people and satisfying their needs indirectly is a good way to stop this behavior, rather than facing it straight on, or trying to deal with people straight on, because we're not this rational creature, and we need to be, like Hal said, right? It's not always about speaking to people's minds. We need to maybe manipulating them. And so the bottom line, I think, here is that we found support that the killing of animals serves a psychological function for people, and not just a practical function. Like many would argue that these sort of things are necessary for a functioning, it seems that this has a psychological function to make us not worry about our own mortality.